welcome back. I'm talking to Gary Heseltine, and we've been discussing the citizens' hearings which took place in April and May 2013. This is 5 days of hearings.
9 till 5, yeah.
In front of 5 retired...
Six. One former senator and 5 former congressmen and women.
Right.
Collectively, they had 80 years of public office service.
The intention being to try and bring about a real congressional hearing in Congress.
Yeah.
Okay.
A debate.
A debate.
A full debate.
Now, one person who spoke, Richard Dolan, he had some new information given to him by some CIA officer. Did you see that one, Gary?
Yeah. No, they showed like a deathbed, close to a deathbed from somebody who was apparently going to die very soon, obviously in ill health, and he was a man that claimed that he'd been involved very heavily in I think was with Eisenhower and people like that there was a secret initiative going on, and he basically confirmed that there had been interaction between government and ET in the past. And
he specifically named S4 as being a facility where ET technology was being hidden. He did. And work was being carried out.
His name never came out, for obviously that won't come out until his death, but apparently that's not going to be too long.
But the point for me was that that's corroborating some of Bob Lazar's story.
And Bob Lazar, your hero.
So
I agree. If that's true, then that's great testimony. But until he's named and he can be checked out, then it's still up in the air. But it was powerful testimony.
Right. Now let's look at some of the other key moments.
For me, there was a key moment definitely on day one. At the end of the first day, bear in mind that these politicians had obviously been told that they're going to get presented with evidence, but I don't think they knew the depth of the evidence and the documentary evidence, the physical evidence, etc., testimonial. By the end of the first day, you could see that the politicians were almost brain overload, because they were given so much credible information that you could see them almost sinking in the seat thinking, what have we done? We had no idea, and they were actually saying all that.
They've earned 25 grand.
20.
Sorry, 20 grand.
But basically there was what I call a eureka moment. When it came to summing up the end of the first day, former Congresswoman Carolyn Kilpatrick was the one who just happened to be summing up, and she said quite without any prompting that after just hearing one day's testimony, she was convinced that there should be a call for full congressional hearings, such is the quality of the evidence, which then prompted the rest of the panel to stand up and clap. The whole audience broke out in clapping, and Steve Bassett came into the room and took a bow. So that was kind of a eureka moment, in the sense that if we were trying to impress upon politicians, look, there really is something to this with these credible witnesses, after one day they were saying, yeah, we agree.
That all sounds fantastic, and I wish I'd been there to see that. Could that not be a form of containment? That you've got all of the top people in ufology who are talking to some presumably important people. It's all very nice and sort of they think you've achieved something, but have you really?
Well, I think the testimony will be in time. We'll hate to see. What I've said is that let me clarify that by saying what the week set out to do, I think, was to get the politicians to actively talk about the subject, albeit they were retired, but with 80 years service, they obviously were experienced people, and they were actively engaging and having debates about ET. Now, you'd never get that with politicians otherwise, so it was well worth it on that. I think we certainly did impress upon them through the quality of the nuclear issue, pilots, etc., police officers, that there was more than enough of good evidence for full congressional hearings. We had obviously Caroline Kilpatrick saying at the end of the first day, I've heard enough to say that there should be full congressional hearings. But by the end of the week, basically 4 of the 6 of the politicians agreed to sign a mandate that said that there should be a call for full open congressional hearings, but also that they wanted that the United Nations be approached. And apparently in 1979, when Grenada had the last debate, there's a motion that's still on the statute book that can be resurrected, but what it takes is it'll take a country to make a nomination to resurrect it, to have a debate. So 4 of those 6 called for a UN, so we're hoping perhaps one of maybe the South American countries makes that mandate. So essentially there could well be an open debate about the best evidence at the United Nations.
Yeah, I mean, last night we were talking about this in a slightly different context, in as far as you have a sort of philosophy, if you like, that you're quite happy to fight them from within their own system. Like you've been on morning TV.
Yeah, and I've been on national television.
You did very well there. Now I won't do that unless I can see what they're going to put out. So I'm fighting.
Oh, your hand is tied behind your back when you go on live TV, and I'm certainly aware of that. But I think that both stances are valid. I think you are more vocal than me because you're outside of that and you have the platform to do that. For me, I take the choice to be within it, and I think that I'm a good speaker and quite quick on my feet thinking wise, so I think I kind of want to get into that debate and try to promote it from within, because I think that we have to try fighting on several fronts. You're doing it on one front and I'm trying to fight it on the other mainstream front.
I find that it would be like almost trying to negotiate with the mafia.
Oh, it is. It is like negotiating with the mafia, but occasionally you get a bit of a breakthrough, and certainly since I've retired, there are one or two TV executives that have approached me tentatively about what I've wanted to do for a while, which is write and present a TV series on the best evidence. So there are some little tentative things going on that they now know that I've retired, so I've got more time to do that. So that's things that are possibly out there.
Okay. Now then, we're in beautiful West Yorkshire, Gary.
Yep.
And what, 25 miles down the road is a place called Todmorden.
Yep.
And you've interviewed
Alan Godfrey,
who had a classic abduction, it seems, in 1980. Now, I've spoken about Todmorden in my recent speaking tour, and I did sort of push the boat out and suggest that I think somewhere in that region, because it's a vast area of unpopulated land, there's been some key UFO sightings, in particular large, black, completely silent flying triangles, and there's just too many cases, and they seem to be focused around that area for me, because I've plotted them all on a map of the UK. There was key sightings there. There's a case in 1980 of a UFO coming out of a reservoir. So this is something that I'm keen to look into. The significance of that area of Todmorden. Well,
certainly historically, certainly in the 80s and 90s, there was a large number of UFO police reports. If you look at some of the statistics on the Proof Force database, when you plot it on a map of England, there's the largest correlation of police sightings is in Yorkshire as a whole, and West Yorkshire as a principal of that county. So, there certainly seems to be historically a lot of activity in the Todmorden, Bacup area on that Yorkshire-Lancashire border area. Now, I see what you're saying. You said to me that there's quite a lot of triangular, silent triangle sightings in that area. It is a very barren area. I think your belief is that there's some kind of base there.
I think if you were to look at all of the evidence and you had to guess at one particular place under the ground, that's where I'll plump for. Because a lot of these triangle sightings are, the craft are almost always seen flying very low, and I can't think of many witness statements of them flying off to a high altitude as if they're going to space.
So it's as if they're here just scanning the terrain.
Yes. So they've got to be going. I mean, we mentioned this in our interview that I showed in my presentation. They've got to be going somewhere. I don't think they're disappearing.
And I certainly think that it's perfectly logical that if ET is here and has been for a long time, that they would have bases in remote facilities, and that's as good a place as any.
And this is another thing that I stressed in my tour. I'm happy for people to have the view that these triangles are of human origin, if that's what they're comfortable with. My point is they're definitely here and they're being facilitated, and our government and our media are not speaking about them. So there's a cover-up on it as far as I'm concerned.
And I accept what you're saying there, because you end up with this conundrum that that the skeptics can't have it both ways. The bottom line is, for those people who say, well, it's man-made technology doing this, well, that's fine, and there's all those that will say it's ET, but the bottom line is they both can't be wrong. What's clear is that there are silent triangular aerial platforms. That's the key. So then we have to find out where they are and what they're doing. And I think where you're coming from in this is that you think this is linked to animal mutilations.
Yes, well, animal mutilations and possibly abduction as well.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's another extremely controversial area.
But it's a valid one,
yes,
because especially when you look at the work of David Caton and his Animal Investigation Unit, basically they've for years and years have done very detailed mutilation cases that are all showing the classic stripping of the jawbone, you know, taking the udders and whatever. Now that is classic, and it's all around the world, loads of different species involved. In fact, David's written an excellent article in the current issue, the first issue of the magazine. Now there is when you look at evidence, as I do through police eyes, there is a lot of documentary evidence from vet reports and things like that. Physical photograph is documentary and physical evidence of something that's quite bizarre going on, and it's a worldwide phenomenon. So actually we're talking about some really good bit of evidence here that's never referred to in the media, or very rarely, and it's an area that is seen as too bizarre, but actually there's actually a lot of evidence to support it.
Now, just to touch on animal mutilation, there was a recent case just north of Dublin that I got sent to me, a horse, and had extremely regular incisions, circular incisions, and one of them, David Caton, he's very good at analysing photographs. Apparently there was a bridle on the horse. No, the incision had been made without removing it, so it was underneath the bridle, as David Caton said. Exactly, and it was clear from the photograph that the legs were all sort of buckled underneath the animal as if it had been dropped. So, and there were other incisions on the animal, and the local media was saying, you know, we've got to catch these idiots.
Well, I think one of the key things that we talked about it briefly last night was that in all of the years of the worldwide phenomenon of mutilations, no one human being has ever been prosecuted. Is that right?
Yeah.
As far as I know, I agree with that.
I mean,
that just shows you how bizarre this is.
People have been prosecuted for obviously animal cruelty, but it's never with
the precision.
It's never in a case where
no blood. At the scene, organs removed through the brain, from the holes in the brain that are not gunshot wounds. You know, this almost laser precision surgery.
And people who like to muddy the water say, "Oh, it's just the military."
Why would you?
But they don't come up with any evidence of the.
Why would you, when you can own a farm and breed 1 million cattle or 1 million sheep and do whatever you want with them, when nobody would ever know in a government facility? Why would you be nicking? What was it? One case you said about?
Well,
1,500 sheep. Just disappeared from a field.
Yeah. I mean, that's another mystery in itself. But just to come back to the triangles. In my opinion, whoever they do belong to, there's facilitation from a very high level, because some guy come up to me at one of my conferences and says, well, your AWACS type plane, they're above the UK all the time. They're flying around regularly with a big radar dish on. And because I suggested that they use very hilly areas because they're invisible to radar, land-based radar, but they're not invisible to AWACS type radar. And he said that they would, if there's a triangular platform the size of a football pitch traversing slowly across the earth,
it won't even show up.
Well, an AWACS plane would. Not a ground-based radar
wouldn't pick it up.
If it's behind a hill, it wouldn't pick it up. But an AWACS plane that's 30,000 feet up, scanning the land with radar, would see it moving, so they would know about it, right?
Okay.
So there's no way, assuming it's a solid object given a radar return, they would have to know about it. So as we also were discussing the other day, we said that on a few occasions, aircraft have been sent out to intercept UFOs in the UK. There's the Sheffield case where Max Burns has researched it, and there was another case from 2000, the flying saucer case, where it seems that another jet crashed. This was in Aberdeenshire, it's been in my talk. So the point being that on occasions the military will vector to try and intercept a UFO.
There are recorded interceptions.
But my opinion is they've got key people who know that there's a standoff with these undisclosed craft, right? But occasionally that goes wrong, and they follow their normal rules of engagement of an intruder, which is that they will intercept. They'll go on an intercept. They'll send an AWACS plane in after the jets, which is exactly what happened with this 2000 case. But I think they've got key people who know about the UFO phenomenon, who will say, no, we don't touch those, we don't go near them. There seems to be a standoff thing. Now that doesn't mean they're aliens, and it doesn't mean they're human.
But this thing is allowed to operate without real knowledge.
Yes, there's facilitation of secret, silent aerial vehicles, some of them the sizes of football pitches.
Absolutely.
And to me that suggests there's some sort of unpalatable agenda behind them, which I think...
No, I think that's a reasonable assumption, and there are far too many cases, and there's, you know, if this was what we would say a terrestrial phenomena, it would have come out sooner or later. There'd be a mistake made and somebody would get arrested if man were involved. But I don't think this is. Everything points to the fact that there's something very bizarre going on, and that there is some kind of facilitation. So I agree with you on that.
All right then, Gary. Well, thanks for speaking to me today.
You're welcome.
It's nice to be here in West Yorkshire, and I think I'll have a little drive along to Todmorden now.
I think you should.